Okay, so back for part 2. This is going to be rows 3 and 4 of the Theresa Brioche stitch. So I'm starting where I left off, which is where we had all these clusters here. And now we're going to get ready to figure out what to do with those. So the first stitch right here is going to be a purl. So one of these is my tail, so I'm just going to move the tail out of the way. And then the working yarn is over here on my right. So I'm going to purl this first stitch. It'll look kind of loose at first, that's normal. Okay, so now if you see here, you're going to have like 3 stitches grouped together. So those 3 stitches, 1, 2, and 3 right there, are all going to be purled together. So just come in at an angle like this and pick up all 3. And it helps if you kind of pull it upward away from your other work down here so that you are for sure that you have 3 stitches. So this row has the biggest risk for you dropping a stitch if you're not sure that you have all 3 stitches on the right needle before you purl them. Okay, so now I'm going to take this, purl these 3. Hope you can see that. So all 3 are going to come off the needle onto the right needle. Then there's this single one here. You're going to slip this one purlwise. And then you're going to yarn over to the front, ready to purl all 3. So do the same thing. Got all 3 again. Purl that. And again, all 3 stitches are going to come up, over, and off onto the right needle. Same thing. There's a single by itself. So you just slip this. Now do the same thing you did before and yarn over. I'm trying to hold this as close to the camera as I can, but also not lose it off the needle, so I'm sorry about that. Okay, so now that I've yarned over, I'm going to get ready to purl these 3 again. All 3 come off the needle. Now, don't let it be overwhelming, just pick out what you need to do. So pick out that individual one first and then slip it, yarn over, and then purl all 3 again. Okay, and then the very last stitch here, all you have to do is just purl that stitch. And I thought the bigger needles was a good idea at first so that you could see how I was making the stitches, but then now I'm thinking about it, it's actually making it quite a bit loose, so that's why it's like near coming off every time, but it's still working, so I'm going to just go with it. Okay, now I'm going to turn it around for the last row. To me, this is the easiest row, so basically the hard part is behind us at this point. Okay, so at the beginning of the last row, I'm changing it up. The first 3 rows, you purl the first stitch every time. And the 4th row, you're going to knit 2 stitches. So go ahead and just knit 2 stitches. One, 2. Okay, now that we've knit those 2, I'm going to bring my yarn to the front because we're going to purl. These 2 that are kind of grouped together, those are going to be purled together and off the needles. Now yarn has to go back to the back because you're going to knit that single stitch. Now yarn has to come back to the front because you're going to purl these 2. Now yarn has to go back to the back again because you're going to knit this stitch. Then there's some 2 here. Then yarn has to come back to the front because you're going to purl these 2. Okay, and then you're going to knit the last 2. So it's just like you started. You knit 2 at the beginning and you're going to knit 2 at the end. Okay, so that is a repeat of 4 rows. In the first part, you just repeat what you saw there with the first 2 rows, and then combine that with what you saw in this video, the rows 3 and 4, and that makes this. And then you just repeat those 4 over and over, and you have your pattern. And I'm sure that it's not limited to anything. You could probably make anything out of this stitch. All I've tried making so far is the cow, and I've had to frog it so many times that I've hopefully gotten this down to a science now. So I really hope this helps. Thanks again for watching, and let me know if you have any questions.